Blog Talk
Welcome.
Radio.
And welcome everyone to New Earth Nation Prime Time. Today we are going to be talking to Sam Coltrane and Judah Eppel. We are going to be talking about New Earth education as well as different concepts that are dealing in and around New Earth communities. So we sit back and put your tray tables in the upright position as we experience a little bit of new knowledge and new wisdom. Sam Coltrane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm a little distracted. I'm trying to get my partner, Judah, hooked up here.
Well, Skype has this gremlin thing that goes around. And sometimes it's at the tech support end and sometimes at the Skype end. But Skype will let her in shortly. I have experienced this on live radio many, many times. So what we're going to do is focus good thoughts and nice wisdom, nice energies on Skype, and we're going to massage the gremlin. And the next thing you know, we'll be talking, and she'll join us.
Oh, great. Well, he asked me he asked me to drag something over. So that's when you both asked me to do something at the same time. So I'm the multiple tasking skill development here.
Yes, we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. There's an old saying from one of the movies that I used to watch as a kid. I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. You know what that's from?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God! It's one of the worst horror movies ever. Army of Darkness.
I'll have to check that out.
It's a cult classic. It's just a cult classic. Anyways, moving along.
I'm getting all these email messages. I think I need to go into Do Not Disturb right now, probably?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, also Rowdy Piper and They Live said that also.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All right, so Sam, why don't you introduce yourself to the New Earth Nation audience?
Well, I was in a former incarnation, because I feel like I've really transformed considerably. I taught for 30 years in the Chicago Public Schools, every grade and subject practically. Prior to that, I was an organizer and a communist. I put this in my bio actually for the New Earth, and I spent a lot of time, energy, trying to bring together people of all the world, different races, nationalities to, we helped defeat the Nazis in Chicago. They're no longer existing in Market Park. We were down in Tupelo, Mississippi, against the Klan that had taken over the Tupelo Police Department. They're gone. We were very active in creating the protest against apartheid in South Africa. We forced the University of Wisconsin. We led the movement that forced them to divest of $97 million in investments in South Africa. And that was, my, concerted effort for many, many years, organizing labor unions to change this physical world. And then, of course, I shifted considerably to not trying to change the world, but change how I looked at the world. And I explored all kinds of different spiritual paths. I was a devotee of Great Master Sawan Singh. I just found out recently that Sasha from New Earth was a student of Sharon Singh, who I think was the nephew of the Great Master. They're both mystics that lead. What's beautiful? One of the beautiful functions is that they have these daras in India, which currently they're so huge they house thousands of people. But anyone who's hungry or homeless, of course, can go and eat and stay for free.
Right, but I'm quite familiar with that. Did you go to these?
No, I haven't been to the ones in India, but we were in the process of creating one in Wisconsin, actually. And
You know, I have run across so many people that were doing stuff in Wisconsin and Minnesota.
yeah, that's the
It's a
center
huge
here.
community up there. It's a huge community.
Yeah, they're in that's still an ongoing project, actually. I have since my teacher was a child of the great master. I mean, not genetically, but he grew up on the great master's lap, and of course he's a brilliant man, Ishwar Puri, and he's still attempting to, he's still in the process of creating this spiritual retreat in Bruce, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, interesting, Bruce is named after one of those militant abolitionists.
Yep.
Nice coincidence there.
Well, actually, nothing's a coincidence in the United States. All of those names are there for a reason. Everybody's trying to make their mark on history. And a lot of people in the esoteric communities that began the early native conquest understood that they were making history, that hundreds of years in the future that they would make a humongous impact on the world. Positive or negative didn't matter to them.
Right. So I began a shift, and I mentioned to you earlier that I had, actually my shift began in the black church in Chicago, because I was teaching fifth graders in Inglewood, perhaps one of the poorest congressional districts in the country, and I was just overwhelmed with their suffering, and at that point I was, pretty much a dialectical materialist. I didn't really have a faith, so to speak. I mean, I believed in the goodness of human beings, but I didn't have a spiritual awareness. And then I was dating this woman who was from the community, and she introduced me to the Burnham Park Church of God, and it was wonderful because Reverend Claude and Eddie Wyatt, the two reverends there, were very active in the campaign to elect Harold Washington, the first black mayor of Chicago. And Reverend Willie Barrow was also part of the church, and she was, of course, the executive director for the Rainbow Coalition, Operation Push. So they were very well connected. And at the time, I was a big fighter against racism. And so
we are joined by your intrepid partner, Judah.
Hi,
Judah, are you here?
Hi, I'm here.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And you are where are you calling from?
I'm in Costa Rica. I'm the South Korean part of Costa Rica.
Very good. Costa Rica. We have got the Costa Rican connection here.
It's beautiful.
Got a little Latin salsa in our vibes today.
Yeah.
So how are things in Costa Rica for you?
Very beautiful. Every day I'm still grateful that I took this decision 20 years ago to live here.
So what brought you there 20 years ago?
I went in vacations where I was brought here, and I stayed. It wasn't really a plan.
It was the no plan?
No plan. I just came in vacation with my family, and we stayed.
That's called the no plan.
Yes.
That's the best kind of plan sometimes. When you're living in that moment.
It was certainly for me, yes.
Yeah. It's Latin timing. So I was talking to Sam earlier, and he was saying that you have a special teaching method with children using crystals.
Yeah, yes.
You want to tell us about it?
It's an energetic work to more literally act as one. We create Merkabahs, we create vehicles that has as an engine in the middle a crystal. This crystal helps us to stay connected with ourselves and with the whole. So our method really, if you want to call it, it like that is to stay as most one, as most united as possible.
So the
yeah,
crystal allows the children and the teacher to link into the webs of life so that
yeah,
they're constantly being nurtured by the focus on the crystal at the start of the day.
yes, not only at the start of the day. Let's say in the start of the day is the biggest impulse,
Mm-hmm.
but during the whole day we breathe together. We always take some time before eating, for example, or in between the lessons to remember, okay, we breathe as one, we act as one, we are one.
So you have
And
breath exercises.
that makes all the big difference.
You have the breath exercises, brings the visceral body and the knowingness. So anything that they're learning is more in their physical body.
Yes, of course. That's another connection that's happening. It's like a side effect. Feeling with one, you also share all the information of the universe, really, and you integrate them totally different in yourself.
Yes.
By breathing.
In your experience with the children, how does it change their day? Are they more focused? What is it that has shown you that this is the way to begin teaching?
Okay. First of all, they're normal kids. They discover things. It's a process that they don't change from one day of the other. It is really a process. Some live this process very purely and fast. Others take a lot of time. It depends very much where they come from, which background they have, in which home situation they live. But what they do realize, and they share this very openly, is when they be able to be in their heart, to be connected with their own crystal, to be connected with this vibration of love and peace, and when they're connected with the other ones, they feel very much better. They treat each other differently. They are capable of listening to each other. And the result, of course, is more focus. Right now, we realize the change is still very much more in the behaving matter than in the learning matter.
What age groups are we talking about?
Right now, our school goes from 2 to 16.
So there's a wide variety of children going through different phases that people can see the level of focus in their grade changes?
Yes, there's a wide variety.
That's wonderful. I've used crystals for a very, very long time in my life, and I make devices that are called orgonites. You ever used anything like that?
No, I never heard it.
Where it's basically you take dozens of crystals and you suspend them in a resin like beeswax or a polyester resin, and all the crystals are made into a single community, and that single community has the same effect as one crystal, but it has many, many more facets to it inside the energy field.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking about with Sam before we came on air.
Okay, actually in the school we are working only energetically with the crystals. We are not working with true crystals, with real crystals, like physical crystals.
Okay.
The thing is that the power of them, like the multiplication of energy that goes inside of them is very, very strong, and I don't want to make any experiments with this because it's not my subject really. So we are working with energetic crystals, but not only with ours and with our group crystal, but also with the earth. For example, once a week we make a group where we do chanting, and it is only for the earth. It takes 1 hour. It's very impersonal. And the only thing that we do is activate the crystals of the earth again, or reactivate them.
You're working with the grids and the ley lines and the energy fields that are around.
Yes.
And separate of a religious belief system, you all realize you have a responsibility to honor the land by giving it your awareness in a ceremony, separate of religious concepts.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay, the only thing that I want to correct is that it's not a ceremony. It's really it's a very simple thing. It has nothing to do with a ceremony. It's a meeting.
Well, when people come together, the meeting of energies can be described in many different ways. I referred to it as a ceremony because I've grown up in a community that was separate of the Christian religions, and they would gather together, and they called those ceremonies because they were honoring each person's purpose of being there. And it was separate of religion. It was literally part of the function of the society. Many of the Mesoamerican cultures are really similar into that.
Okay.
Yuta inspired me with this crystal to write a poem. I'd be happy to share if anyone's interested.
Sure, go ahead.
It's called the 0 Point Learning Crystal. Blue Caribbean, which is of course the name of her learning center, Blue Caribbean Learning Days begin with crystal, not in solid form to hold and physically see, but as vibrant heart energy, intuitive, subtle, extrasensory, primordial, and forever free. Making nothingness manifest as form, a new earth painting of unconditional love, awakening, creating, extending new norms. She nurtures and hums for our little doves. We can hear crystal, the original sound. Listen to her mystical music through the spheres. Engender her to build structure on the ground, a non-local consciousness, totally free from fear. She is Ma'at from Kemet, and the Tao from China, the Logos from Greece, and Om to the Buddha. Sufis dance with her, and she is called Shabd, or Shabad in India. She is Apostle John's word and the heart of Kabbalah. Crystal is our 0 point of stillness and silence, pure potential exuding perfect geometry and sentience. Meticulous and exquisite, we observe with true patience our one human soul shining its brilliance. That's it.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It is very beautiful. Thank you.
So I have another way. Instead of calling it a ceremony, we'll call it an application of ancient knowledge.
Yes. Very
There we
good.
go.
I like that.
Language is so important. I'm a stickler for language.
That's a great one. Thank you, Yuta. She inspired all that.
Yeah.
Everything's connected, and it's like I never worked with crystals before meeting her, but I just see it's all the same thing. I mean, it's just this primordial energy potential.
Okay. The work with the crystal is also a very easy work to raise our frequency. So one big goal of having a school crystal is to create a environment with a really high vibration, and this makes us see much easier our behavings in a lower vibration. So things getting really much more clearer. It is much more easier to behave differently, to be connected with our heart, with our inner wisdom. So the crystal doesn't only help with the unity, but it rises immediately and a lot the vibration. That has also very, very much to do with who we are in this learning center.
We also created a faculty crystal just on Tuesday. You want to tell it? Maybe you can tell us about that, the faculty crystal.
Okay. Yes, actually, I create a crystal for everything that I have to do with, because I just learned that my personal limits get resolved with being connected to the whole. So when we create with some people a new Merkaba with a crystal, what happens is it gets into the network of all the crystals that there is. Every living being has a crystal. Every plant has a crystal, every tree has a crystal, the earth has a crystal, the sun has a crystal. So we all interconnected. And our knowledges, the things that we receive, the things that we feel, are coming from a much bigger being than my the little me that I am. So I really have sometimes very magical experiences with this, like things like telepathy and having the same vibe, saying the same things, being in the same wave. It's just becoming more and more natural state of being instead of living in separation.
Yeah, we are we are a crystalline community. Okay.
Yeah.
And in this crystalline community, we're all connected to all other crystalline communities, mineral communities, stone people. They go back ancient times when man came onto this world as consciousness. Judah, you'll have to turn off your radio because I'm getting some feedback from you.
I have no radio.
All right, so sometimes it's the Skype speakers that are doing it. I was saying we're all interconnected to these webs of crystals that are all around us, and that forms what's called the Akashic record. That's what records every being's experience, and it's the crystalline community to keep us connected. That's their purpose in the reality, so that there isn't separation.
Exactly.
And all the teachers are there. All of the teachers are there. And it's just a matter of allowing these teachers forward into your mind in a state of love and trust, and bringing this to children in the school in the very beginning of their life, absolutely vital and necessary, that they get exposed to these concepts and begin to realize at a quantum level they can entangle with this interconnected web of life and find true healing, true knowledge, and true wisdom from their own hearts.
Exactly. I think that has to be very clear. Every person has a crystal, and every person easily can connect this crystal and so far be interconnected with everything. It's just a matter of letting go our old structures, the old things that we learned, the way of living separation. And once this is done, learning facilitators are able to have a totally different way of connecting with children who has this very naturally. Most of the very small children are in this already, and they don't have to learn anything. They just have to stay as they are.
Absolutely. Sam, what projects have you and Judah been working on?
Well, we've pretty much, established the objectives for the 0 Point Learning Center. Would you like to hear them?
Yes, please.
Okay, I gotta get into a different site here. I thought I had it up here, so I'm gonna just take a couple of seconds here. We actually changed the name from Education and Learning to 0 Point Learning, and we've changed the word school to Learning Center, because we want to a new Earth to emerge. And of course, what you said earlier is great. That the words we use is very important. Am I online with everybody now?
Yep, you are here. We're just listening to your beautiful voice.
Thank you.
As you prepare us for your radio enticement. I love pulling the radio voice out every now and then.
Should I read the mission and purpose as well, or just the objectives?
Just read what you feel comfortable, because we're going to be joined by Laura Uplinger here in just a second. Read what you feel comfortable, because we're going to be joined by Uplinger.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Laura, can you mute your speakers?
Yes. Is it mute?
Yeah, no, just your radio show in the background, so we don't hear an echo.
1 second.
So and Jean Marie.
Hold on just a second, Sam.
Yeah. I'm not able to turn it off.
The radio show in the background is playing. All you can do is close a window that has the radio show still playing.
There it is.
There you go.
Has the radio show still playing?
Voila.
There it is. There you go. Has the radio show still playing? Voila.
Correct?
Yeah, you say it's still playing. There, now it's off.
Voila.
It's still playing.
Now, did I turn it off correctly?
Let me see if it's playing in the background now. Yeah, there it's off now.
Yes. Fantastic.
Anyways, we are joined by Laura Uplinger, and we will be Laura, just hold on one second. Sam was going to read out his thing here real quick, and then I'll intro you.
Okay.
Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Welcome.
It's an honor to be here. What a joy.
Yes, thank you. So Yuta and Jean Marie and Greg helped put all this together just recently. We actually borrowed a quotation from the, I think it was from, in fact we had a reference to it where it came from, and that was left off of here. But I think it was the consciousness faculty. I'm not sure. In this natural state, we abide with grace in our sovereign throne of the 0 point of the heart, where the pure experience of unity with all that is, from moment to moment, is recognized beyond all limitations of words, concepts, thoughts, and beliefs. That was, we felt so connected to that, and what we're doing flows right into that. Our mission is to gather, develop, and share the best practices that facilitate learning as measured by the quantity and quality of love engendered.
Yes.
Our purpose, exploring and questioning the basic structure of schooling, is critical to the creation of a new earth. No longer will education be designed to prepare our beautiful youth to submit to authority in a world of systems completely out of sync with nature. A new ethic is arising, a cooperative one that nurtures innate creativity and encourages young hearts and minds to transcend the limits imposed by educational philosophies designed to celebrate ego and foster competition. As we grow in awareness and in our experience of abundance, competitive testing becomes increasingly meaningless. Our purpose at the 0 Point Learning Faculty is to help each other and the planet unlearn limiting ideologies and thought systems that created a toxic world of guilt, fear, separation, and scarcity, thereby fostering recollection and renewal of our natural state of innocence, love, unity, and abundance. Our objectives for 2014 I think are in, well, there's actually no priorities. Establish sovereignty of the land on which the New Earth's first model learning center is presently operating in Costa Rica. And that's Yuta's gem.
Yeah.
Gather resources to assist in the construction of additional facilities at this learning center. Identify qualities and characteristics of ideal learning facilitators. Consider the development of new instruments to measure learning. Support New Earth academies to identify skills needed to facilitate and advance their work. Identify and communicate best practices to assist learners in the acquisition of these skills. Facilitate discussion about the design of student exchanges between New Earth communities. And then imagine and appreciate the love, joy, and beauty engendered by learners directly engaged in the creation of a new Earth, and how this new affective domain will burst the present confines of cognition.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool. Laura, we are joined by Laura Uplinger. Laura, are you here?
Yes, I am.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And you're about conscious pregnancy, prenatal parenting, and why don't you give the audience a quick introduction to you? I know you've written a tremendous amount of material and books, and I'm quite a fan of your material.
Thank you. Well, you see, all these extraordinary ideals about who human beings could really be, this potential of kinship with all life, all the sovereignty you speak about, it has never happened, right? We were destroying forests way before our century now. And since remote antiquity, we seem to have been building empires based on injustice and taking advantage of others, of the poor. There's something in the making of the human being that did never really come into place, but now we do have the neurophysiology to understand that during pregnancy, from just before conception to the end of breastfeeding, a huge amount of education goes on. Not just the good formation of all the organs, but already in each tissue of every organ, messages of how we can behave or not in the world. We women throughout millennia haven't succeeded to give to our Gaia, Mother Earth, the true civilization of true sons of the universe. But now we understand better. If a pregnant woman has food, joy, if she's inspired, that's it. You have a different humanity going on, receptive to the great ideal of the New Earth nation. Does it make sense to you?
Absolute sense to me. And one of the things, it starts at birth. You know, we're separated at birth. Our umbilical cords are cut off right away. We're taken out of the placenta. The umbilical cords can stay intact 4 days, and it allows the heart to bond to the mother and the father. Children are much more complete when that happens. The tip of the penis is cut off. I mean, there's so many things that separate us, the incubations and vaccinations that separate us from the natural birth. And women need to be empowered with that natural birth again.
Yeah, but this is true cruelty, the way we treat the laboring, the birthing women, and afterwards. But still, it's not as important for the making of the human being as conception and pregnancy.
Yes.
You know, this is a message we'll carry for life, birth. True, every transition, I'll go back, subconsciously, of course, to the way I was born. And if it was difficult, if I needed chemistry, I'll go towards alcohol very easily.
Yep.
On the other hand, if I'm made out of a womb of joy, oh my goodness, I'll even deal well with a difficult birth. I will have inner energies, resources. Even DNA is completely changed and transformed according to pregnancy. We were under a reign of genetic determinism until the end of the 80s, at least in the understanding of science. And then suddenly they see that nature versus nurture, it's nature with nurture. The environment, the environment, the inner environment of a pregnant woman, her thoughts, her feelings, how she sees herself and the universe, are actual food and will be as important than the DNA she has in her womb developing at fast speed in that baby. So that is an extraordinary sign for freedom. We can improve even the genetic materials our babies have.
It's life-giving material. It's the essence of life material inside that embryonic sac.
Yeah, yes, and you see, fear of the status quo.
Yes.
So many of us women will have it since always. Are we going to be okay with this pregnancy? Is our man going to accept us? Or whatever, is the king, does he want a child that will be a girl or a boy?
Or the ones that go through the fear of having a child, and then after the child's at birth, they wonder, why did I bring this child in the world? And then they go through extended depression.
Yep, and that depression, that they even said it's normal to be depressed. It's not normal. What you were saying, if you leave mother and baby completely gazing into the eyes of each other, this is a love bonding that will completely be the antidote to any kind of depression.
Yep.
The depression settles in because of a weird feeling that I should have lived something. Something should have happened that did not happen. And a baby with a depressed mother, how does he feel? Is he ruining his mom's life. Babies think they have every cell has a consciousness. Imagine a baby. So,
I have said this many times. When kids are growing up, they are psychic sponges for everything that goes on. For every fight a mother and father have, not separate of the baby, that baby is still a sponge to those energies.
yeah.
I don't think it starts with the baby. I think it starts with the fetus.
In the womb. In the womb.
Yeah.
But as the baby is growing, they're learning their linguistic patterns. That's why I'm such a stickler for our language.
We sang to the we sang. You know, I feel so blessed with my son and his mom. I mean, we sang to him in the womb. She read him stories while he was in the womb. Yeah. You know, he was right there from the very beginning. He just started the University of Chicago as a freshman, and you know, he's an indigo child. He's an amazing kid.
And you see the difference because the attention was there, the presence was there. My child, she's a girl, she's 25 years old. Oh, what a delight, what a friend of life. They have a sense of their, the importance of their presence on earth, and at the same time they are of service, they're receptive.
Right.
It is important to know that every single child in our leaders in all societies since antiquity, they were never breastfed by their moms. They were breastfed by wet nurses.
Yep.
Forget about bonding. And conception wasn't always the great thing. Sometimes the marriages were arranged most of the time. So thank goodness there were exceptions. But we have never explored what it is to give oneself to a child, a couple. That's the best present for a kid. Give them a couple who nurtures each other. Oh, the child will say, hey, where I come from, it feels good.
I never understood the depth of love until my son came into the world. It was just so profound.
Yeah. And just to make love, wanting to conceive, to say, universe, here I am, is there a soul wanting to come? Here is who we are. We're ready to host one of your guys. Somebody who would like to come and be part of this crazy world right now. Just to think, it changes lovemaking forever.
Absolutely.
To be so receptive, men and women. And it's possible. And I love the fact that the very rich are as in need of this kind of understanding as the very poor. All of us are in the same Mother Earth womb, and we need that information. It pertains to ancient schools of mystery. True.
Absolutely.
But
those ancient schools of mystery understood sacred masculine and sacred feminine. They had fertility rites in which they would build up their prayer energies or their religious energies or their belief system energies so that when they had conception-based love with their partner, that their religious system, internal or external, was intertwined with that so they could reach to the furthest points of their consciousness entwined as a masculine and feminine to search for the right soul for the theme that they were creating.
You know, we have an amazing connection here. I just remembered that Linda, I believe, who works with you, Laura,
yes,
introduced me to Utah, and she lives next door to Utah in Costa Rica.
In fact,
small world.
In fact, before I started with creating a new learning center, new possibility of giving children what they need, I worked several years as a midwife here in this little very countryside zone, helping women to give natural birth in their houses. I think you cannot divide any more these kinds of things. There is no separation. It's from the first thought of wanting to have a baby until the children are going away from home, where education is happening. And not only education, but more than education, is touching their hearts all the time. And in this way, let them stay connected with who they are.
Yeah, it's absurd not to behave as mammalians. We can have PhDs, okay, but in order to give birth, we need to respect at least the physiology of giving birth, being a mammalian, which means let me give birth in my territory. Let me give birth in the privacy of silence, of dim light. The hospital should be left for the cases that really need a hospital. Like we don't go to the hospital to digest a meal. We go if we have an indigestion. Of course, food poisoning. Then quickly we go to the hospital. And great obstetricians agree with that. A normal birth should be in the privacy of a territory where the woman feels totally at home and totally secure. So your work is grand over there in Costa Rica. Yeah.
Sure is.
And I gave birth to my children at home, and as a mother, I can see the difference between children who are born in a peaceful atmosphere, wherever it was, but in a peaceful atmosphere where birth-giving mothers are not forced into structures, but can follow their own feelings. The children have a much more peaceful
Demeanor.
yes, than other children. It is really from the very first beginning.
They have
And
a
I
greater
think that is
propensity-
what, for example, in the learning facility that I'm working in, we talk with our young people about that, about, okay, how were you born, how were your parents born, how do you wish to have your child once you have one, because I think these are structures we have to unlearn when they are very, very young, because they hear so many lies and so many wrong things, and it has to be, they have to get in contact with this quite early to be able to create a different reality inside of them and then outside of them.
Yes, that respectful birth that you say at home, it's really like a huge treasure we give the child. Yes, and when the woman is in privacy without structure, as you mentioned, the oxytocin can flow freely. There's no adrenaline on the way because it's antagonistic. So if we are aware, thinking, feeling observed in normal ways that we feel in a hospital, it will make a 3-hour labor into a 36-hour labor, because it's hard for the hypothalamus to bring forth in our bloodstream that oxytocin, called the shy hormone, that will orchestrate all the other hormones involved in birthing. So it's not just philosophical understanding, a philosophical point of view. It is mainly neurophysiology of birthing, and I really thank science to have taken the time and having had the patience to investigate all of that, because now we know that we should birth like farmers know how to help their cows birthing, for instance. We're mammalians, and then we respect the timing of the child, and that's it. Trust is built. My child was born at home also by the fireplace. Perhaps we should not always think of natural birth at home with water. Water is one possibility. Fire is another one. And we feel on the top of the world. Postpartum at home is amazing. How I wish women could have that taste of being just part of the universe, birthing a child in the very normal ways that nature has figured out for us, designed for us.
when you give birth on a land, you are much more bonded to that land, and so is that child. You know, the interconnected webs of life and birth are always there. It's our perceptions that do it. And science brought its perception onto the environment of the birth room. And it began to realize that a woman can be an adrenal gland fight or flight response while trying to give birth, but that's not natural.
Yeah.
You go to the natural way, they would find have a nesting syndrome where they'd create the perfect environment of comfort and the sisters and the those that the trusted would be there, and the midwives would be there, and those men that were a part of that simply were there because of whatever functions in the clan or society they had at that point.
You know, I think all this knowledge has been repressed, you know, by the dominant male energy, and I think that, you know,
Well, that's one part. That's one part.
This emerging new earth is a nurturing thing, and that's a feminine energy. I think that we all need to really get in touch with.
Yeah, but we're sick. The feminine is sick even in women, and we have fostered this male energy exaggeration in
Yes.
everything we do. So it's how we can't really talk about men and women. Men will always be the sons of women, and we have to, my ambition is to have women understanding that men need to be given a higher level in our nature. We need not just lipsticks and high heels. Perhaps they are expecting that we bring in higher thinking, and then they will be receptive, because we might be receptive in certain levels, but they will be receptive to wisdom that we could bring, but we would have to stop being the modern little woman.
Exactly, and allow our pheromones to come back. So many of us have taken on to the skincare products that have eliminated our natural productions of pheromones, which ultimately helps the male and the female get over frustration.
Yeah. Now, there's something that science hasn't figured out yet, but from conception to birth, let's say it's 9 months, and let's say this baby is going to live for 90 years, each month will correspond to 10 years of life, but reverse. The very last month of pregnancy, we kind of plant, energetically speaking, the first 10 years of life. So conception itself would be linked to the death of that person. The more conscious the conception, the more we open the avenues for a conscious death that is so important in our life trajectory on Earth. And we plant, again, energetically speaking, old age at the very onset of pregnancy, when so many women don't even know they're pregnant yet. Perhaps it accounts for so many old people being in homes without really knowing what's going on with them. Their presence wasn't acknowledged. So this is a very serious part. It's not a scientific data yet, but
Oh, I fully understand what you're saying, and I'm totally with it, because I've worked with Alzheimer's patients inside nursing homes and trained people on the energy techniques to help manage the more difficult people. So I know exactly the lostness inside them.
yeah. Now tell me, how did you get interested in this universe of birth and breast pregnancy?
Me, I actually remember I've returned to the 0 point in the fetus and mother's womb many times.
That's great.
And then I went before that into that infinite connection, and then that space where I was in another world, in another experience, in another frame of reality, and yet still this I am presence and able to function on both sides. And when I was about 3 and 4 and 5 years old, and I would transition between the two worlds, and this world was saying, you got to make a choice, stay here or go away. I chose to stay here. And many children go through that in their own way. And when I work with autistic children, I see them walking between two worlds. Horses walk between two worlds, cats and dogs, and they are entangled with our consciousness. We just aren't aware of how early on we are entangled with every part of our environment as a conscious human being.
This is true. This is wonderful. And then when you were a teenager, did you give a thought to all of that, how you had come on Earth? Did you keep that memory?
Yeah, I had a series of experiences. When I was 9 years old, I had gone to a baseball game with my father, and it was bottom of the ninth inning, a tied score, and our team hit a home run, and everyone cheered. And at that point, I knew who everyone in the stadium was, and I later began to understand that this was the Akashic record, and that everyone's theme and record of their entire life came into my consciousness at that point. And I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't understand it, and it was just there. And
Wow.
since that point, I have gone into why was I trying to understand that moment, which jumped me into the career of being an Akashic record reader. I don't do a trance. I can process all of the information in the now, just as if I was in the womb, and I can connect to myself in the womb and communicate. It's not a separate being. It's just a way of perceiving the dimensions we're existing on. And that's what I was going through in my teenage years.
It's beautiful because we need to know that everything is recorded. Every single thing is recorded. In the Akashic Records, you can find from a grain of sand 5 million years ago to a Plato or Socrates. Everything is recorded, which allows us to build. It's for others from another evolution, I suppose, if they want to study, but also for us to be able to see more clearly.
Andrew,
So, yes,
I got to ask you this. From your recollection, when do you believe that the soul actually, this soul that you had prior to birth entered the fetus?
When at the exact moment?
At conception or after conception?
In my birth scenario, and this is very common, that a child will go into the fetus and will share an extended amount of time with the mother and father and make a series of agreements about who's going to be your first grade teacher, where you're going to live, are you going to move a lot. The beginning stuff of the foundation of the child coming is taken care of. And then there comes a point where there's another child who has a much more urgent need to be in, and there's something in the DNA lineage that allows the fetus and the child that was there beginning to exchange, and a new one come in and have all the experiences with the mother and father that the original one did. And I would be an example of that, but I would have come into the fetus just before birth, probably a few hours before birth. And that would have been to confuse those energies that are observing the birth through the Akashic record, because everything is observed at all times. It's just a matter of that observer's entangling or not entangling with it.
Do you think it's accurate to say that that the fetus is part of the mother's soul until a certain point when the fetus becomes an independent soul?
No. The second there is a moment the sperm and the egg meet and there's a chemical exchange from that moment, there is a soul connection from the astral world, and there is a beginning of a program being built, which is DNA, and the DNA is the memories that you are bringing with you from other lifetimes here, and during the fetus, you create your original programs that help you understand what you're trying to do here through the perception of the mother and father and everything that's 1 degree of separation of them. That means the baby can observe every friend, every person that walks around the street between the observance of the mother and father. And they build their life off of what's the environment there during that 9 months of infinite nurturing.
Do you believe that the children choose their parents?
Yes, many do, but sometimes it's their guides who choose.
Right. Exactly. Sometimes their guides choose, and other times they say, surprise me.
I love that.
Okay.
Now, in the schools of wisdom, they say that the couple, in most cases, will have already attracted 1 or 2 souls, I don't know, to them. And at the moment of conception, that couple, the way the couple is, it's the father that has 100% the responsibility energetically to attract that soul.
Yes.
Once the ejaculation is on, once those spermatozoids go running and I don't know, opening ways for each other, then it's 100% the mother until birth. So it's very interesting. They say that that soul will work intensely with the soul of the mother, and including visit the home, the fetus, the embryo, as you would go and visit a house that you're building, but you're not living in it there. Now, many masters have taught to, have preferred to teach that with the first breath intake, the whole zodiac feels something there for the life of this child, and the soul surely penetrates, then will inhabit that little body for a little while, because then the child needs to sleep a lot, the soul needs out. That body still does not contain all of the soul. It's still not really
ready. It's still making the programs that allow it to exist there, and that is the DNA memories that are the linkage to this world.
Yeah.
So it's choosing what memories it wants to remember, even though it's going to forget them when it comes through the birthing canal.
Yeah. Although between the age 2.5 and 3.5, most children in a quiet and relaxed moment can tell you
everything.
about where they came from, but they say that after the bath or before going to sleep,
Yep.
and sometimes they even come up with their life purpose, and then they don't say anything anymore. They kind of
I have worked with many, many children that have had this go for 3-4 weeks at a time, and then it'll stop, and then it'll go for 6-7 weeks, and then stop for a few years. And then just before they turn 6 or 7, that's the last of that experience.
You know, I've believed since prior to my son being born, actually, that he, actually after he was born, that he was Julian Johnson. Julian Johnson's a guy who wrote The Path of the Masters and, you know, was a primary disciple of the great master who I spoke to before, Samhain Singh. And, you know, he, of course, you know, it wasn't until he became a teenager that I even talked about it with him. But the fact that he, you know, that was firmly in my belief his whole life, I think it, you know, it to some extent, it put pressure on him, even though, you know, it was inadvertent on my part. I wasn't conscious of it. And we're currently discussing that right now is, you know, because it had an enormous effect on me, you know, that I'm looking at someone who wrote one of the books that was the most important books in my whole life, I gave birth to the author. I don't know if that was just a great story that I was told, or, you know, in fact, is the truth. It's, you know, it's a mystery to me.
Wow.
Truth is a mystery, and at times truth is stranger than fiction. And in my years of looking at the Akashic records, I can attest that truth is stranger than fiction.
Yes, and we can see that in daily life. Many people would say, did you visualize your birth? And it's, of course not. I'm too curious. I want to know what's in store for me. I want to know what has to be lived. I don't want to pre-know something with my mind, little intellectual mind. Let me be open to be there, fully there. And of course, I would have never dared imagining the birth of my child. It was such a gorgeous one. I would have been crazy to imagine such a gorgeous birth, like a reality check or something. And that was the birth that I was honored to witness. So,
you know, what made that last thing I mentioned so significant recently was because my son just started the University of Chicago, and Julian Johnson, of course, went there to get his theology degree.
wow.
So it's like, you know, it's really eerie stuff. And I imagine that there's a process that, Andrew, you've gone through to actually verify, you know, the truth of that, right? I mean...
Oh, yeah, there is a process. When you see patterns like what you're just describing, I call that 1 degree of separation. That means the soul of your son was functioning with the soul of that person in the dream world, in the spirit world, and was planning their life based off of what that person would do to affect the whole communities.
This is beautiful. And when we die, we don't take with us the books we have read, but we certainly take with us the books we have written. Your son will be able to pick up where the other author had left.
Well, he picks up everything. I mean, he took 14 AP classes, got 5s in every one of the court. I don't know if you know about that in the Chicago Public Schools system, but it's an amazing thing. He didn't even study. He doesn't study for, you know, a calculus final because he just knows all that stuff. You know, it's like there's no other way to explain his mental capacity than that he learned it all in a former life and he's just remembering it.
This is fantastic. What a proof of reincarnation, my goodness.
Exactly. Anyways, guys, we need to go to break. All right, Santi, why don't you put us on some break music, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation. And welcome back, everybody. We are joined by Judah Eppel, Laura Uplinger, and Sam Coltrane. We're going to continue our conversation. Judah, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Welcome back. And during the conversation, during the break, we had an incredible conversation. And Sam was asking you a question about the teachings that you're doing. Sam, you want to continue that conversation?
Sure. And her name is, the J is pronounced like a Y, so it's Yuta.
Yuta, sorry.
And
Thank you.
Yuta, you know, is created this amazing learning facility, and she's been the inspiration. And of course, as a model, we want to be able to reproduce it. So one of the things that we are considering and discussing is the qualities and the characteristics of an ideal learning facilitator, someone who could carry on and we can share with the rest of the world. So where are you at as far as that goes?
Okay, what we realized, the school, of course, is like a kind of a magnet. So a lot of teachers write and want to come to learn or to teach in the learning center, and we realized that it is really important that these people have some qualities. It is simple qualities, but it is very important because they have to do so much unlearning, really, and to become one of these new age or new earth facilitators, learning facilitators. So the first thing they really have to feel inside of them is that life is something different than where we were told, that there is much more to discover than what we have been told. So that if this search isn't inside of them, it's very difficult. Another point is that they really have to understand in a very profound way that to be a teacher is really to be a apprentice, because that's why I like also so much the name learning center, because it's not only the children who come to learn in the learning center, but it is most the adults who come to learn in the learning center, to get just a new vision of who they are, what they came for, and how they present it or how they live it. So that is another very important point. The other thing is they have to be very passionate about it, because it is this new way. It's really a confrontation with all that we believe in, with all that we thought we already know, with all these old ways of connecting one to each other. So it's a constant confrontation, and you have to be very passionate about it to not give up. And it has very much when in the end the school has a certain vibration, and already people coming who are kind of involved in this vibration, but it also has to be very much clearness, and this is not a job, it's not work that I get paid, it's really choose a new way of living, a new way of being. It's a challenge all the time, because everything that happens in the learning center will come into your life after school. It's in every sense. No, you cannot stop it. I think the connections that they wish with the children has to be totally different. They have to recognize them as soul brothers, not as
soul family.
Yes, soul family, not as a child who has to be taught, or a special being who can do whatever it pleases to. Like there has to be a soul connection made, and the most important thing is the practicing of listening to this soul connection, because it is not anymore teaching what we have to do, but listening and touching each other's heart to out of this touching realize who we are. Then in this moment, the process, there is a self-activated process that starts. In the moment you're touching who you are, everything changes in your life. So that's really our journey.
It's beautiful. What you bring here, Jutta, is really ambrosia to my soul. It was difficult to be a mother through the school system, and we moved a lot, my husband and I, because of the lack of engagement of the teachers, engaging in their own lives, engaging with the subjects they were teaching. There was no passion, and it's a sin. I mean, to teach without wanting to teach should be forbidden. It's worse than eating when you're not hungry. So to bring this dynamic interaction, and we teach children sometimes the relationship we have with the universe we are bringing to them, and they know so much more about it sometimes. I mean, it's, wow, but thank you, Jutta, thank you.
That is exactly what I'm talking about. Really, the unlearning has to be to touch them with the words and the things that we're doing, because they come out of a much deeper knowledge than what they told us. So what happens, our experiences, what happens with the children then, for example, when we do these sound circles where vibration gets really, really high, they actually can already reach the first information that they didn't know, but that are very real, and they start to share information that I only know that they exist, but I couldn't reach them by my own awareness. So
Wow.
they talking about, for example, this energetic forms of crystals and other energetic forms that they can see, and as soon as they start to share, it's like a puzzle. Everybody brings like a part, and they can put it all together, and then there is a deep understanding of something. And that is a very fantastic thing we are just about to discover with the children who are longer time with us. And I think that is the new teaching, because they actually have much more access to it naturally than we do. So I think that is the new way of helping them, only helping them to reach what there is, let's say it like that. And as a team, they put it together and they figure it out, and there is no more need for remembering things of the books.
Abstract
because
fact,
there is a whole universal library that they have, or we can reach. And in a very beginner stadium, we are touching this now with the older children.
And with the help of art, right? With the help of beauty.
Yes, of course, with all of this, who brings us in touch with ourselves, very much also with the very conscious connection to Earth.
Jutta, before you go, can we invite everyone here to join our faculty crystal?
Yes, of course. It is when you create a Merkaba, the potential of the people who created it, everybody is invited to connect to it. Brings his part of the consciousness inside of it. This is just with your intuition, with your intention. You do this. You go into your heart crystal and you connect. You connect to the earth crystal. You connect to the learning facility crystal. You connect to whatever you feel very particular part of it.
So, is there some method that we could do now to express that intention, or?
my understanding of it is that sound is a vehicle for intention. So it is also a vehicle to get more deeper and profound in our own crystals. So with the sound, we can connect very, very easily. A sound that comes from our heart. So if you wish, we could make a sound and invite everybody listening on the radio to join in the sound and connect with the crystal. That gives much more power and efficiency to the crystal, and all this consciousness that comes together will act as one.
Okay.
Do you want to make the sound?
I would love to.
Go right ahead then.
And we all do it with you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So the only important thing is that I will make the start sound not because I'm the one, but because there's to be somebody who gives the note. So
Okay.
to do this in harmony, we should first listen a little while, a very little moment, just to get the same note to make a harmonic vibration.
What about our breathing? Should we?
Okay, and the most easiest way to connect with our personal inner crystal is to observe our breathing. Because in this moment we step out of identification with our body, but we become the observer of a normally and automatically breathing behavior. So in the moment when you are the observer, you're much nearer to your crystal than to your personality. So let's take a moment to observe our own breathing. That should bring us peace, quietness. The more sensible people maybe already can feel that their body vibration gets higher. We go down from our head into our heart. It's a different space. I can already feel the energy field of our commune crystal is getting so strong already, only by doing this. Now what we are going to do is to put the intention of connecting to learning faculty crystal and to connect to it. It's in a second this intention is done. Just take a second now to feel inside of you what you felt, what you saw, what you heard.
Joy.
Yes, and then
Happiness.
share it. Okay.
Thankfulness. I just, it's just so beautiful. I feel like reborn.
Thank you, Yuta.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very, very much. Do you want to give an email address that people can get a hold of you? I know you have to go now.
Yes, I am. The email of the Learning Center is Caribe Azul Escuela. That's all one word. Maybe somebody helps me to spell
We
this.
posted,
Caribe.
we posted it into the chat room.
Okay, Caribe Azul Escuela yahoo.com. That's our mail. Whoever is interested to know more about us, just write, and here we are to answer the question.
All right, Yuta.
Thank you very
so much
for having me here, for sharing with you nice people. Thanks a lot, and bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
have a good one.
Bye-bye.
So, Laura, we had our interview was scheduled for a little bit later, and you came on early, and we'd like to get into some of the more depths of the conversation with you on conscious pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's great news. I often feel I'm the bearer of good news. There's so much we can give by being to a child in the womb, not by buying something, but just by being. And this is gorgeous from mothers all over the world. On the other hand, societies should know how to consider the pregnant woman. This is my quest. I would love special places for them to go to enjoy the synergy of their pregnant bellies. And for instance, every neighborhood having a choir. The singing, how it makes interact the left and right brain hemispheres. And when they do interact because of melody and of course words, there's a joy that comes, a joy that is felt throughout the body. And beautiful singing, joining in together, could be a practice all over the world in many cities and villages for pregnancy.
Yes.
And places of beauty. I studied with a spiritual teacher, Ram, who was from Bulgaria and taught from some 50 years in France. He was from the country of Orpheus and in antiquity. And he said he would spend his time, if he could, traveling just to tell the heads of governments, set aside beautiful land in several places in your country where women could go and spend some days, some months if they wanted to, where they would have peace in order to do the most important work on earth.
Yes.
Doctors today call that sabbaticals.
Yes, sabbaticals, okay, for the Queen of Sheba. That's very good.
So we're at a point where we can't do this. I'm sorry, I'm having a bunch of military helicopters fly over my house right now.
Uh-huh. Are they?
Well, there's a military base over here, and they're doing their daytime practices.
Mm.
It's regular. Last week I had a biplane doing aerobatics over my house during a show for about 30 minutes too.
So how do you interact with their energy?
Oh, it doesn't affect me. You don't have to allow it into your reality. You have contrast control at all times. Your sovereignty is here to determine how you're going to function in this world, and that includes when you don't want to exchange energy with the system that I call domination and control. You want to be in peace, love, and harmony. That's got to be in your specific frequencies at all times. And you can create your world here, your dream world here, through love, through peace, through unity, through respect. And communities come together that change the cultural taboos that we have that say division, separation, and obsessions.
Do you direct any energy toward them, though? Do you try to...
No, unless they're directing it at me, but that's a rarity.
But what you're saying there would be the Bible for every pregnant woman. That would be exactly how to, because all of us are pregnant, men and women. We're pregnant of our future selves, tomorrow, the day after. So this is so important. Let's be sovereign of our inner states, our inner lives, especially if you're pregnant, you're feeding in a little one in there. But Otherwise, we're feeding also all our tissues. Pregnancy goes on. We're in the womb of the universe. And what you said was, please write it down and send it through. This is especially applies to pregnancy.
Yeah, Andrew, your articulation is amazing. Would you do me a favor and you heard Yuta express herself, and you know there's some value to me in recording in as efficiently and as succinctly a way a knowledge base. You know, we want to unfortunately use words that are limiting, but it's a great choice of words. Could you articulate what you heard as far as these qualities that we're looking for in ideal
In life patterns?
Ideal learning facilitators?
Well, for education to be understood, the child coming into a community to educate, well, the education should start at home first. And when children come together, because parents have to work in our current environment, because that will inevitably change, as we begin to be more heart-centered as a species, that there'll be transitions where much more will be at home, but the education has to start at home. It's the socializing that should be done in school. And those first 5 grades or 7 grades should be working with animals, plants, nature, sports, music, very little science and very little math until they reach 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. They should be out in nature, out in the world, doing things, socializing, taking care of issues that come up from their DNA memories, such as competition on male or between male and female, because that can be taken care of right away at those ages. And the community facilitators and teachers should be helping them engineer themselves socially so that when they go to choose the type of specialty and knowledge and wisdom at a time where it's much more effective for them to have gone through the stages of puberty that are going to be coming up, then that child will be ready to make a more open focus spiritually, mathematically, socially, or whatever else.
Yeah, you won't have burned his energies in the wrong activities,
Yeah.
so there's no burnout, so they're ready, they're free, they're open to that kind of structured knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, those are great aspects of what a learning facility should do, but she was talking about the qualities of a learning facilitator.
The facilitator has to be psychic. That's plain and simple, because kids are paranormal. They do paranormal things all the time. It has to be a combination of healer, psychiatrist, intuitionist, nutritionist, herbalist. He knows how to put plants and take care of animals. And then make sure that you pass on that respect to others and recognize when a child is going rebellious and is breaking respect, especially when you're breaking the webs of life and harming animals.
And how do we, Yuta talks about there being a time period of at least a year for an apprentice to work with, someone who's, considered a learning facilitator, someone who's
That's the thing. There are naturals that could do it in less than a year, but the person must be screened at all levels, spiritually, physically, socially. You're going to be working with children and influencing those children as the future people they grow up, and you can trigger things in them that are DNA memory based to them that may have something to do with the Spanish Inquisition 500 years ago, and that facilitator has no idea that simply the way they were wearing their hair is causing that. So the facility has to have other things to help the facilitators understand how they're interacting with a brand new understanding of a reality from a conscious sentient being that could be millions of years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Wouldn't inner authority be also a paramount quality?
Yes.
The level of mastery of sovereignty, as you say, I have over myself, that's what kids pick up.
Yep.
See, they learn who we are when we're not saying anything. It's when that essence, they communicate. That's why we do have to have those extra powers, as you say, because they will pick up on exactly that. Our moods from yesterday evening will impact them more than the lesson we're giving in the morning.
Yeah, and this ridiculous idea that school has to start at 7 o'clock in the morning, no.
No.
School should be long after the child's woken up, like 10:30 to about 2:45, and then you pick up just before lunch or just before dinner, or you have an after dinner, and there has to be an understanding that the children need their sleep. And when you start interrupting their sleep and forcing education down their throat really early, you are diffusing the education and giving the rebellious side of the child, which is their hormones, trying to understand reality, more authority, and thus the loss of personal sovereignty at a young age to programs we create.
Are you familiar with written material that articulate what you just told us?
Written material? There's, I don't know, I've been saying this for as long as I can remember, so there's probably other people that have similar concepts.
Well, what value is there in the 0 Point Learning faculty putting written material on the site that would, sort of identify what you just told us? I mean, you think that in and of itself has value?
Well, everything has value. It's state of perception. If one wants to look at a learning faculty and create something with it, you, the individual, must be a teacher. I mean, you have many years of teaching experience, so that's what you bring to your field. That's what you bring to your perspective. When I do this, I look at this not as a cookie cutter, but as each individual child is a beautiful and unique snowflake, and that the education system must reflect that infinite reflection that will be growing and being nurtured in an environment, and that person must have personal sovereignty, personal integrity, and a level of impeccability that the child smells viscerally.
Yeah. Do you have time to help us, put this down on paper and
Oh, I'm sure. We can also do transcribe off of this, and you'll be able to get all the material too. We can just get a volunteer at the Humanitas side to just go and transcribe this section here of the show, and we can go from there. That'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah. In esotericism, the most sacred profession is teaching. It comes before healing. Its healing seems more spectacular, but a true teacher will avoid that person needing healing. So that's the importance teachers have.
Yes.
So every possible investment into the dignity of a teacher is like a fantastic investment.
We even thought of getting away from the concept of teacher in the sense that, it implies a certain one-way information flow, where the teacher, sends the information and the kids have to receive it, whereas we thought learning facilitator would be,
well, that's our linguistics backfiring. I call this sacred geometry linguistics. When I say the word pray, do you know which one I'm saying? P-R-E-Y, P-R-A-Y.
Right.
We can easily confuse children, but when a teacher is teaching the act of doing in that flow of energy, there is no separation or confusion. There's always an exchange, because that's what children work off of, energy, before money comes into their concept. That is the other side of teaching in schools and facilities, is the concept of exchange for energy and value must be explained to children at an age where they can help process why their energy is being converted into these green dollar bills that make no sense to them, and so they create a belief system around it by learning their history and then being force-fed mathematics. And that's such a terribly confusing thing on children, why so many kids growing up have a horrible time balancing their own checkbook.
True. On the other hand, to have a model that truly embodies what he is saying tells me as a child that one day I'll be able to embody what I think. So it is important for them, children, young ones, to be in touch, in deep contact and interaction with people who have it together as far as their essence and manifestation. That shows them that there is a way to do that. Often in the family, we don't have that. Because we could also start by saying, how should people be before they become a parent? Perhaps we should have kids at the age of 94 also. That's another part. So a person, an adult near a child, will receive from that child an immense trust. And if we are void, the child will also be learning being void is okay.
They will recreate those voids in themselves, or begin to absorb your pain and begin to take on shame, blame, and guilt when they're not helping you.
Exactly.
And that's the foundation programs that tells the child to be in the other world and barely here. Because they were doing that since the fetus. They can leave and come back as they please. 10% of them are here. You know, when they need to put a fork in their mouth, they can make a program to do that. They can make a program to say, I love you before you go to bed, even though they're well into their other world.
Yes.
And then these habit patterns stick around, and we as adults don't even realize that we still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Automatic pilot is a killer.
Automatic pilot. And that's the battle of the human species in this awakening process. For many people, it won't be spiritual at all. It'll be literally battling their programs for you to be a sovereign being here at all times, realizing you've given your power away in so many ways.
And then we throw in cynicism in the art for children, in their cartoons. It's the reverse, the opposite of empathy, the opposite of communion. And we fill those spaces of cartoons with a very intelligent, malignant message.
You know, the children don't stand a chance at some points. That's why I said right away, from 1st to 7th grade, outside, music, exercise, learning all of those things that give that child a great foundation of understanding there are ways to disconnect from the reality and connect into the reality and flow back and forth between whatever it is that's going on in your perception as this infinite being trying to go through this learning process as a finite being.
It's a huge adventure to come on Earth. We have to express here what at a soul level we already live, and now it has to be through this adventure of spiritualizing this body, I mean, making it vibrant to a certain level. And nature is not impatient. We have many lifetimes to doing so, but why not do it now?
We can do it now.
Voila.
I've come up with a suggestion on a number of other radio shows that people look at this brand new process of homeschooling. Not homeschooling in the old sense, because the government defines the way it is. That people make like I was talking before, groups where children socialize with animals, with plants, and that is the facility of their education. You want to see kids grow, take a slice of 2 weeks and put some kids together, take them to the zoo, take them to the petting zoo, take them to a cornfield, take them out to the park, show them butterflies. That is the kids in nature doing what they're supposed to do at that age.
Yeah, it's all happening at the zoo, as Simon and Garfunkel said. Right?
It's all happening at the zoo. You know, and then the other thing is planting. Kids need to reconnect to what a seed is, because that's the easiest thing for that little consciousness to understand, that this seed that's in my hand right now is going to grow into something.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a problem with the zoo. But
yeah, the confines, right.
Yeah. On the other hand, it's already one step, and we can see the sadness. If an adult is there, we will see how detrimental a zoo is for the animal, how imbecile we can be,
Yeah, well, some people in the city, that's all that they have. And
Sure.
I as a spiritual person, do believe many of those animals in the zoo came in with a choice, as we came in with a choice to be teachers. And they are teaching many people many lessons that we don't even fully comprehend at all times.
True, but we have robbed them of their
Yes, we have.
existence. And it's important for the children to notice and to think about it. It's a beginning for empathy, because you can see in the eyes of some of them the whole story being told that this is not it. I used that with my kid also when I was in D.C.
Empathy.
But I saw animals in the freedom. I saw them in Africa. And you are a prisoner of a little car. And that's totally different.
You know, we are a prisoner of our visceral bodies, too. And our visceral bodies can trigger these responses in us, such as turning off our empathy abilities, and we become callous to our surroundings.
Yes.
And that's the other thing, that kids have to allow their visceral bodies to be filled with joy and happy memories, and not sudden memories of car accidents or arguments with parents or something going on that caused tremendous distrust inside themselves.
Yeah.
Can we explore this distinction between a teacher and a learning facilitator? You said it was like, to try to change that concept.
Honestly, it's going to come down to a person that his conviction is to make sure that a child finds sovereignty, truth, honor, respect, learns a common moral code, isn't limited by parental limitations. Somehow this facilitator knows the family and is able to help the family and the child grow. It's in a sense grandmother, grandfather. You got to look at it as a clan concept. Bunches of families came together to share resources, and part of the shared resources was education of the history of the people. And that was done through different historical ceremonies where people would come together and tell their stories through oral traditions. We don't have that in our culture anymore. But school, education, can be recalling of our history. That would be a teacher standing up instead of a fire in a classroom. But the setting is absolute key for the children. Absolute setting.
Just the words themselves are right now. Do you think that the word teacher has implicit in it more ego than necessary? Where
yes.
The concept...
Yes. It's only because our linguistics has been polarized to do that, and then the rhetoric that has been on the news for the last 5 years has designed to change the perception of the word teacher, just like the word gay has changed from meaning happiness and joy to being by a homosexual. This was a conscious way to take power away from the word teacher.
Yes, I don't know how you would think about it, but I know that deep in myself that in the past, even in those societies with clans, with history, with ancestors, there was a lot of violence. There were wars also. We should not try to go back to models. Just take from history many models that can inspire us. This is now the time, because this, for instance, birth is the same thing. No, it wasn't nice to be born in the countryside, in the French countryside in the 15th, 16th century. I've read the diaries of the midwives at that time. It was horrible. It was filled with superstitions. There were many obligations. Was the meaning?
There's a notion, I was a history teacher, there's a notion that somehow there's an evolution of progress in history, but what's really amazing is that they've excavated the entire Giza Plateau now, and they're finding that the pyramids, contrary to the common belief, were not built by slave labor. It was a national project. There was love and devotion to the pharaoh because he was, a servant of the people.
That's not true either. That's not true either. The pyramids, by modern accounts, carbon dating, are 20,000 years old. I think they're way older than that. I mean, our history has been written by the victors over and over and over and over again.
So what's not accurate? That there was slave labor?
They were built long before, and they were just the inheritors of an empire that had fallen apart.
They knew how to cancel gravity, correct?
There was a whole concept that our world had technology and lost it. But as you lose technology, there are generations and generations that forget how to fix it. And that empire, it was just the inheritors of the junkyard.
Well, the Great Pyramid, I mean, that's what we're talking about now. We're talking about the Giza Plateau and the Great Pyramid in particular. They've taken apart the entire living quarters of all the laborers, and they looked at what they were eating, what they were fed. There's in the remains of the advanced level of health care, and in
100,000 plus people live there. Yeah.
So you don't believe that they themselves constructed that pyramid?
Not at all. I think the Pyramid of Giza was built at about 803,000 years ago, long before any other species came here, but at a time where we were heavily advanced as a consciousness exploration species and exchanging our DNA with other species on an energy body level. And as we began manifesting lifetime after lifetime on other worlds, dually manifesting over here, there began a great separation in our world, and we created a tremendous paradox that affected the rest of the universe. And part of the resolution was we all had to return here and resolve our personal karma, which was the induction of reincarnation to our system, so that there can be a remedy and resolve or zero balance to the way we affected the rest of the universe as little micro beings woken up to a whole new level of responsibility because of the planet we lived on. It was a very special planet. People came here for very special reasons, to have very special incarnations, and when you put all that soup of life and you mix in all the other drama that was created around us, the perfect soup that taught the universe what free will truly was. You know, ultimately the show here is, what are the depths of free will? And if you're going to teach a whole universe what free will is, how do you begin? You disconnect them from source, you disconnect them from the dream world, you disconnect them from their masculine and their feminine, connect them into materialism and consumerism, and give them jobs 40 hours a week.
So these people in Giza right now who, you know, I think, well, at least from what I was able to use from it, to come out and say, look, the pyramids weren't built with slave labor. That was a huge, and you have a civilization that lasted, you know, according to historical records, at least 400 years in relative peace, which, you know, is to say that, look, human beings can live in peace, an advanced civilization can live without slave labor, complete legal equality between men and women, have advanced health care provided for everybody. That to me was a way to say, look, we're, you know, this current understanding of history is inaccurate. So you're saying that they're just reproducing more illusion by saying that these pyramid builders didn't actually build the pyramids.
Yep. They maintained those pyramids as a religious concept because they had lost the ability to use the technology, and all it did was each generation was passed down as oral tradition of how to use the technology until so much was lost in the whispers of centuries after centuries, they had no idea how to use it anymore. And it's just a big bunch of rocks that's painted now, and each generation imprinted upon it their belief in what they would pass to the next generation.
So carbon dating is
carbon dating functions for certain things of that environment. If you find a piece of charcoal that somebody built and burnt in 900 BC, it's a piece of charcoal from 900 BC, or if it's a piece of charcoal from 32,000 BC, because that's also been found. But then again, we have suppression in our society. Look at New Earth Nation. For it to come out, it had to go through a tremendous pushback just to get a webinar out, just to get a webinar.
Yeah. Yeah, in African shamanism, it's very clear that the Nile was a river humanly built. It was like a canal built to bring in gold from over there in
that's their history.
Zimbabwe. So African shamanism in oral tradition has been extraordinarily enlightening for those things that you're saying. This goes way long ago. Linda Tuck, who speaks about that.
Wow.
Linda Tucker.
You know, we can go into other concepts such as ancient aliens, but I don't think that applies to this conversation. I think what it applies is to the consciousness that we are. We go from lifetime to lifetime. That's my belief, and I know Laura believes this is very similar, that we are here for a series of experiences, and sometimes we have bad experiences. But we as the higher soul that came in here, sometimes we force ourselves, our micro selves, to go through some of these bad experiences as ancestral karma. And it's a way of resolving the great mistakes that we made as very responsible elder light beings of our part of the galaxy, who ultimately went through an extended process of teaching free will to themselves and to many others.
I can't imagine living without that awareness. I mean, right now. I mean, nothing else makes sense.
But you did, didn't you?
Yeah, angels and gnomes don't have free will. This is a big experiment. Yeah. This is a big challenge. Now, I'm hearing there's a caller wanting to speak with one of us that's been waiting for over 30 minutes. What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead and take the caller. Yeah.
I didn't even know that there was a possibility.
Yeah, well, please, Santi, help us.
And the
Hello?
caller is live with us.
Hello, caller. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, this is Kanai from the great state of Arizona.
Kenai, I got that. You sent me a message, right? This is
I
Sam.
did indeed. Yes, hi, Sam.
Oh, great. And you got back the message I sent you.
I did, a little too late. I only caught the second half, I think. But I got a plethora of information from that just by listening.
Wonderful.
And what is your question?
Well, I am interested in applying myself in the zero-point energy, zero-point learning that encompasses zero-point energy, zero-point everything. To me, it only means I'm starting over. I have been on the journey of unlearning the many years of bad programming, and I resonate with a lot of the subject matters and the topics that you guys have been talking about.
Okay, did you have a question for us?
How does one get started with, if you're not really considered as a teacher, how does one contribute to the zero-point learning facility?
Well, you got to start in your heart. That's where it is. And the children will manifest. You begin working with them. How do you actually go through the process of making an actual facility? Is that what you're asking?
Correct. I've had experience working with children as a facilitator, homeschooling, even though it might have been the old modality. I did not use the programming that was given to me. I created my own. So
okay,
I'm not
so your question would be for Yuta, how she built her facility.
Okay.
She's not here right now, so I can address you to Sam. He might be able to answer that question.
All right.
Well, Utah has an amazing school in southeastern Costa Rica, and I think she's looking for teachers that have the same orientation that you do. And of course, what you'd be starting out at in an apprentice, really, learning from another teacher. It's a very sort of rustic atmosphere. It's sort of in the jungle of Costa Rica, and there's a lot of, like, Utah's home is open. I mean, she doesn't have any doors, so it's quite a. I mean, to actually, think in terms of living there would require, if you're used to living in an urban, American environment, it's just learning to live there would be a tremendous learning experience.
I'm more interested in working with adults, not children.
Oh, you're okay. Well.
Okay, well, we need to take our break right now. Caller, thank you for your call. We'll get you in touch with Sam on the break here. Just hold on a second and we can exchange some emails and we'll get you some more information. All right, Santi, go ahead and take us to break. And welcome back to New Earth Radio Prime Time. We are joined by Laura Uplinger and Sam Coltrane to finish our final hour. Welcome back, Laura and Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on the break, we were talking about children growing into the reality and learning from their parents and learning from their environment. We're coming at a time where we as human beings have to look at our culture and how our culture teaches us habit patterns. Sports is a very common example that runs wild amongst the male and the female. We'll take a common one, football or soccer. You have men on a field that are showing off their athleticism, but at a spiritual level, they are the ones that have said, I don't want to be a warrior anymore, but I can show this. I can find some of those kinds of resolution. And our culture has taken that and turned it into a monetary exchange at the highest level, almost bastardizing its whole concept. That's where capitalism took away a lot of our freedoms, and being the process of sovereignty was greatly declined in the human beings from about the 1850s all the way into the 1990s, and then until they finally rolled out Agenda 21. Ultimately, we are the inheritors of all of our ancestors' issues or debt. We don't have to accept any of this debt. That's the true sovereignty of this I am moment, this generation that lives here now. Each person comes into sovereignty separately. It's an individual and an alone journey. But in that alone journey, you can share many experiences of oneness with the world in many different ways, from plants and animals to growing your own food, to sharing time to change the world in groups, coming on the radio, writing books, consciously exploring the universe and sharing your experiences. We are a shared reality. And in that responsibility of sovereignty, we share our experience so all others can find their own healing and their own perspective into the infinite world.
Wow.
Well, thank you.
Yes. I can't wait to get this transcript you talked about.
Yeah, that could be a good broadcast to give people who go to work in the morning.
I am an inspirational speaker at times.
You sure are. And your word, it's the word choice that that's really so important.
If you listen to some of my other interviews, I very much try to be conscious of absolutely everything I say, and reiterate at other times. There's a context in which we can understand. This is called 1 degree of separation. I may have used this earlier. 1 degree of separation is everyone you have ever met in your entire lifetime, including the people you have passed on the street or people that have just heard your voice or within eyeshot. Well, add radio into that 1 degree of separation. We are, as a species, it would take less than 200 people to make a unity consciousness grid where all people could use the concepts such as Yuta explained, the crystal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In consciousness, it would take less than 200 people by the simple rule of 1 degree of separation to make us a unity consciousness grid planet. Right now, our planet is at a bubble of trying to deal with angst, fear, depression, regression, obsession, and the way our culture has manipulated those individual things to extremes that have created rhetoric and created factions. And ultimately, our consciousness awakening is the breaking of factionism and returning into the single faction of Earth, where we're heart-centered, species-based, around the love of the planet and all the webs of life that support it. How that transition occurs will be an individual journey into sovereignty.
Wow. And it's interesting when you speak about sovereignty. We have average between 50 to 70 trillion cells in our physical bodies, plus all the other ones. Many more trillions will be microbes, the good ones, the bad ones. So each cell does have its own memory, its own consciousness,
Yep.
its own soul, so to speak. And they're looking at us in order to have clues for the behavior amongst themselves. If I'm cleaning a room, for instance, I'm dusting and I'm using the vacuum cleaner, according to my gestures, if they're violent or peaceful or conscious, that will give them the correct vibration, the way they should treat themselves. So we are sovereigns to begin with of some trillions and trillions of cells, many more times than 700 times the amount of people on our planet. So this interaction between atoms and cells throughout the galaxy and in our own physical body, it's something extremely serious. The way we consider the water when we wash our hands or take a shower, or when we drink it, the way we consider the intelligence of each plant we eat. The seed of a carrot knows much more than I do. I don't know how to put my finger on earth and have that gorgeous color vegetable coming up from the very dark of the earth. So we're surrounded by cellular intelligence. And not to marvel at that, and not to have gratitude for it, not to try to penetrate it, is to isolate us from life. And a pregnant woman should receive those, not inspirational, but those bits of information so that she can make up her own cosmogony, because she will be passing it on to her baby in the womb.
You know, I'm personally a vegan. I was wondering about you guys, and what you think about vegan diet.
It's an individual choice. I think each and every human being out there is going to make a conscious choice at what level they're going to accept the food chain, because plants are alive too and have a consciousness too. So being a vegan really is a perspective of four-leggeds versus an insect or a plant kind. So it's the food chain that you're really confronting as your issue with the reality. Everyone needs different. I'm an omnivore. I still eat meat. I still eat vegetables. I cook. I do raw food every now and then. I adjust my diet based off of what I need energy-wise. I'm a very different type of person. I process high frequencies every day, not from just doing radio shows, but from all the other projects and healings that I do. So,
what if you had a fetus in your body? Would you change that?
I would do what the fetus wants.
Yeah.
I would be in union with it.
I love it. I'm also very concerned in the way we treat what we eat. How were those trees planted that are giving me apples now? How was that cow treated before it got killed?
Absolutely.
Permaculture. That not just the permaculture, but the animal. And as I see, I've been an ovo-lacto vegetarian for over 35 years, and it comes so easily. I mean, let's leave the animals. They are asking not to die, those from warm-blooded. So that's very interesting. Could that help us not to have this antagonistic force from another animal evolution, another one than ours? Mm-hmm. It's a question. And I agree with you. It is a personal choice, but sometimes people don't know they can make that choice. I was brought up huge carnivorous, and one day I said, what am I doing here? It's possible not to eat it, and I have such an interest for animal life. I cannot eat meat, so that's, and the level of energy will be different, of course.
Well, it also reflects the past lives. If you've lived lives of animals, after a while you won't want to eat those animals anymore. And I have another understanding of kind of how our reality works. When animals come in here, such as cattle or any of the other feed species such as trout, when they are captured, caught, and consumed, their entire process, anyone that's facilitating their catching or eating, those fish share the life experience with that person through that process. So when you eat a fish, it gets to experience your life through the Akashic record of Earth in its death process. So it understands that it's raising its frequency and vibration to be a part of that cultural society, of that energetic being society. It is part of the web of life, and it is a perspective to see. We have a food chain that was brought here and incorporated to change our species into a different level of knowingness. Sure, and then you remember the fruit and vegetable times, or the other times where we grew our food differently. And
what about the pain of coming out of the water with a hook in your mouth? I mean, what is that?
That is all. That's you bringing polarity into the conversation. Honestly, the whole point of a food chain is to incorporate the resolution of karma through reincarnation. You are that fish to go and experience that person's life so that you can be a part of a food chain, so that you can come back in at a future date as a human being who may be a fisherman who teaches his son the greatness of the world. It's all interconnected.
Towards the end of the 1940s, the entities responsible for the fish evolution, that it was the end of the fish, the Pisces era, they have told some spiritual teachers on the planet that fish were not in an easy time in their evolution and were willing to give themselves, including with the pain of the hook, as you say, to help us with some special elements, perhaps the omega-3, I don't know, with other elements. So that
the connection to the ocean, because we share their experience. It's that livingness, oneness with the ocean that we are so starved for now.
Yeah, and I have been eating fish, yes, regularly, not specifically, but it has, because of that understanding that they have something to bring to us, so I can open up and receive it. It took me 8 years as a strict vegetarian because I wanted to make a departure from the way I used to feed myself before. I was very young. I was 22 when I discovered all that. And but for the mammalian ones that we eat, especially they're not carnivorous. They eat only grass. It was easy for me to just set that aside and not encumber my energy with them, with their death and their suffering, because they really scream before dying. Now, Hitler was vegetarian, so that doesn't make me a better person, or it's just a choice of many who deal with the occult or the esotericism. It helps you in the mastery of yourself, in that sovereignty.
For those people that can't communicate with the fetus, you know, for the woman or the husband, the father, can't communicate with the fetus on what kind of food they'd like to eat, I mean, is there certain, I mean, is there certain types of protein, for example, that are, would vegetable protein have a distinction difference between animal protein as it?
It's all about the love.
It's all about the level of stress the mother has.
Right.
The
That
more
too.
stressed, the less food she will assimilate. The more calm and conscious about herself, you know, we transform everything we eat into everything we need. Every sugar I ate yesterday can be transformed into fat or protein in my body. It's not linear. So the vegan do very well, but provide there is no stress. That's the whole thing. Allergies will come thanks to stress. And I said about chronic stress or intense stress that comes in often. So first it's peace and quiet and communion with life. There's no how to be pregnant. You agree with me?
Yes.
So a peaceful carnivore is give birth to a more peaceful child than a stressed out vegan.
Certainly, yes. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, the stress out means already that the brain is, or the whole nervous system
is in adrenals, yeah. And once you're in adrenal gland, you're in fight or flight, and you're not in comfort.
Yeah, and you know, the blood is distributed towards your limbs when we are in stress. So the central axis of our body doesn't get as much. Many people who went to an exam really scared of not passing, not getting the grade, they just had a blank. The blank meant that all the energy was in the limbs and not enough in the brain and the heart. So when a mother is stressed, she will have that, but her baby inside also. Peace should be an inner peace, even if there is turmoil around you, should be the first thing. And what better to bring peace than love? So what he was saying is perfect. Yes, love, but love yourself, yes, and love everything you see. The Bhakti Yoga could be a wonderful yoga for pregnancy.
Another thing is environmental control. When we have that zone of trust with our individuals that are around us, we let down. And letting down means the full personality, the authentic self comes out, and that's what the pregnancy needs. The as much authentic self time, not a program time.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
And in that sacred space, that nested space. And yes, you can still go out and experience the world and polarity and that, but when you come back, you have to consciously disentangle and remember you are carrying a soul that's coming into this world that's going to inherit what you leave it, what you teach it.
If without that honesty, the baby will think this is a whole farce. This is ridiculous. They have that sense. The lack of integrity makes them detached from us, not even needing us, not even looking at us for role models.
That's right.
So in this conversation, you when you refer to polarity, is that what
polarity
do you mean by that?
Anything that takes one into the high frequency of one concept, where it takes it from one level to the highest oscillating level that it can be. It's increasing the frequency and raising the volume on something to make it more pointed in a conversation that is not related to that. It's related simply to being a concept. We as human beings do this when we encounter things that challenge our reality or challenge our concept. We go into polarity, and that is the adrenal glands once again showing activity instead of allowing the natural flow.
Can you give us an example? Because I completely agree with you, but perhaps some are needing to have an example of daily life.
In a baby's perspective or daily life?
Daily life.
Daily life. Example, you're driving and somebody cuts you off. You have a choice right there to give them the finger, to yell at them, to go put your hand up and say, okay, you have a life too. That's one example. Everyone is triggered differently, especially when it comes to consciousness and driving. Are you your authentic self then, or are you your programs? Do you yell and all of a sudden go, well, why the heck did I yell? Another example, let's say somebody's in college and they're trying to study to get good grades, and they're recently broke up with their girlfriend, and they're making a conscious choice to study and study and study, and they go and take their classes and their tests. They think they did great, and they come back with very bad grades. That's when they look back at themselves and realize they weren't really studying. They were just thinking about their ex.
Yeah.
That's their denial was the river in Egypt in them, and that's how reality can be altered by ourselves very easily.
So
very
true.
easily we can forget our past.
So where's the polarity there? What do you?
Polarity is literally when we go back to a point where in this energy frequency that we suddenly have to bring our authentic self through, and that authentic self is a much higher frequency than the current conversation. It can be both sides of the coin. It isn't good or bad, or it can be both good and bad or indifferent. It is just literally the moment where the highest frequency, you're saying the hook in the mouth, that is literally putting a visual perspective to a conversation, that is putting that spike in there. That's polarity. We as human beings have to learn that. We have to learn the habit pattern of not doing that, because it's our linguistics that amplify those moment after moment after moment.
We have to do, say it again, the last part?
We have to make a conscious choice in eliminating that in our speech patterns.
Polarity?
Polarity, yes.
This
Really?
kind of self-education, this kind of awareness of our freedom to be after the person who gave us a bad maneuver in the freeway. As we do that, as we take ourselves in hand, we are teaching the babe in the womb that this can be done, not following instantly one reaction or the other like a ping pong ball left to the wind, but assuming sovereignty. Instead of saying this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, but by choosing how we want to perceive a situation so that we can integrate it.
Exactly.
Does the ideal learning facilitator use polarity in the classroom?
Neutrality.
Neutrality in the classroom, but they will watch a movie about that polarity, and they will reflect about the disgrace that comes from a whole life based on that polarity, because you can get very irritated immediately. The aggression comes because of polarity. So to instill neutrality, we have to be able to have this reflection. Some children have already found that out inside themselves.
Right.
I have to let go of this dialectical materialist framework in the sense that, you know, this whole notion of the Hegelian dialectic moving from thesis to antithesis to synthesis, that somehow, exacerbating, or creating polarity is a learning experience. You're saying no.
That's literally that's Pavlov's dog's reality rules, right? Right there. You want neutrality because you want the sovereignty of the child to be nurtured at all times, because that's where the authentic self, the authentic spirit comes out. That's their reality. That's their sovereign right to that reality as part of the agreement to come and live in this world. We are the only species in this universe that has to pay to live on our planet. Why is that? Where did that come from?
But otherwise, it's the equivalent of dressage. It's the whole
Yeah.
school of behaviorism. And you go to the street, you get a yogurt because you spelled. The inner gratification never comes to be. The kids get a good ice cream because they spell the word right. It's not, we don't feel part of the universe. We're looking for somebody to sanction our actions.
You know, I have to confess that, you know, for much of my teaching career in the Chicago Public Schools, I went in there as a warrior, you know, what I thought was a liberator, and, you know, we're going to challenge the system that, you know, creates this consciousness that's, you know, toxic or whatever, and that, you know, I think what I did unconsciously was give kids a grand scapegoat to avoid looking within for a long time.
But that's the way you were taught.
Interesting.
And that was the way people were taught before you and before them. This is an engineered, educated design system that we have, and you are a perfect example of a person awakening to how we can live in a more natural manner and begin to adapt our current learning concepts. What can from the current education system be maintained? It's not 1st through 7th grade anymore. You start in 9th grade. Period. So all those other schools can be turned into natural education facilities where parents can bring their children there to share experiences of going with the animals or going on different things, doing things in nature, working with the natural world.
Thank you. Given, let's go back to this, you know, fish hook in the mouth polarity. And you're saying that generating polarity in the classroom, you know, ideally you want neutrality rather than polarity. What about in a radio show? I mean, does polarity add interest to the listener?
Well, it depends on the type of radio show. When one's reading the Akashic records, it's always in a neutral perspective because it's the only way to perceive the infinite source. So everything that I do is in a neutral perspective. It's the same way when I do private sessions. When people want to know about their deepest parts of their other selves and they want to be able to connect to this self, it's about layering the two sides so you can see perspective. Polarity is one side of the perspective. There's the other side of the perspective, and then there's the observer of that. And the observer is neutrality. And in neutrality, you can make decisions that don't have polarity. It's another way of living and being, and it's a part of sovereignty's expression in oneself of what we allow polarity to create and co-create in our belief systems when we might not be fully present. Because polarity is a visceral body reaction. It is in the chemistry of our body to react to certain scenarios that are high frequency. And when we are reacting, we are not in authentic self-responsibility, which is sovereignty. The whole point of responsibility is the ability to respond and not react through programs. And culturally, we as a species are programmed to heck at our sensuality, our sexuality, our way we go about recreational and activities, the way we work. We are the dressage horses. I mean, I've done rehab on horses that are Olympic champions and all sorts of things, and at age 1, they're jumping. That's like bringing a 2-year-old kid and telling it to jump a 2-foot fence. Okay, and those beings, those horses, they reflect a life like that. Our children growing up in these societies and in these big schools now reflect the same concept. Recovering dressage horses, except they have cell phones and are sharing all of their experiences with each other and desperately looking for ways to find a neutral perspective and not be in polarity because they are tired of being an adrenal. They are tired of reacting to the whole world.
So, as a radio host, would you ever consider inviting a guest to create polarity?
Why would one create polarity when one can observe all sides? Polarity is just one side of the story. You have to have all sides of the story. So why would one need to create polarity?
No, I mean, in other words, so when you bring in a guest that says one side of the story, another guest that says another side of the story, that's not necessarily polarity.
No, that's showing both sides of the story and being a responsible host so that we can break bread in a unity consciousness style and lead by example, that both sides can be presented and be given the due honor and respect, so that when the conversation's said and done, that we can say we can have another one. That's the whole point of New Earth Nation, is to open up the conversation so that people in polarity can say we can still converse and we can still be friends and we can still share things, because we are all coming together for the common purpose of unity, and teach that to the children.
What about disagreement? What about
disagreement? Debate. That's a different forum. That's a different format. The debate should either be done orally or in written. If one is going to debate, it should be truly written as starting, and then you go into an oral debate. Totally different frame of reference. Radio is a different method. This is New Earth Nation Radio, where we present all of the different aspects of New Earth Nation, and some may be in agreement or disagreement, but the common concept is sovereignty. The common concept is unity. The common concept is no central banking system. The common concept is transparent truth in history. The common concept is allow education to heal our children and not just hurt our children.
So as a host, you wouldn't have a debate on your show.
Like what kind of debate? It would depend.
Okay, but a heated one, where...
No, I don't think heated debates are radio. I think that's once again falling into the programs of the dressage horse, playing to the party instead of showing love and unity, that you could come together and have both of those sides show their sovereign self, saying, yes, we can disagree and agree at the same time. I think we're at a time we have to show the world at a whole different layer.
When we get into a disagreement, for instance, it teaches us much more about who we are than about what we're disagreeing about. So it's interesting to stumble upon a disagreement, and that can be taught and shared with children, with adults.
Conflict is an opportunity. I mean, it doesn't the fact that someone experiences conflict and they get an emotional engagement, isn't that like part of the affective learning domain? I mean, is that a stimulus to learning, or you'd say it's...
Why does everything have to be conflict? Why can't there be oneness?
Yeah, you learn always much better when you are in joy, because learning is first. We learn with our feelings, and then what we have learned, we will process with our intellect.
I mean, so, I'm not arguing for conflict. I'm arguing for looking at a conflict as a learning experience to generate conflict resolution. So,
well, that's a different teaching experience. You would be teaching conflict resolution to children who are experiencing conflict. In the concept that Uda was bringing out, there's very little conflict because they're already starting at a unity base each morning. So you would introduce conflict resolution to children through some type of energy sharing. There are different individual aspects. There's no cookie-cutter way of applying conflict to children because they're such individual beings with individual experiences. And that's the struggle with the education system's philosophy, is how to cookie-cutter children when you never really can.
Wow.
Which means there can be no real education system, which would mean there would be no real need for educators, which would mean reinventing facilitators in schools such as Utah.
Right.
It's the whole transformational process, and each person in that individual industry has to go through their sovereign concepts of, well, what does this mean to me? If I am in belief of this, so that we are going to change and give the children all of these opportunities, I myself have belief systems that I was taught as an educated person that I must adapt or change or create with or procreate with, or sit and quietly contemplate at what I can do to add to the situation with the skill sets that I have and still maintain my sovereignty without giving away my power. That's the responsibility that we as adults have to make a transparent transition society.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. I allow
Great.
people their moment to speak. I don't think anyone needs to be suppressed. I just think that the frequency is to remain that all sides are open, that everyone has to come to sovereignty in their own level, and give the people the respect. This is what it starts. We have to come together.
I just viewed, I 100% agree, and absolute freedom and no suppression. That's why, to me, like sometimes conflict in the classroom can bring a formerly more passive student into touch with a certain awareness that they didn't have before.
Right, but that also is under this idea that they're already the dressage horses with the conflicts built in, coming from television and cultural society, and that's where education makes its first mistake. It's got to be at the home life, at the raising of the child. That's where educators should be.
Yeah.
But it's an industry,
Yeah.
and that's supported by the government, so it has many of its own paradoxes that it has to deal with.
And in the meantime, every conflict, every thing that needs to be disentangled or whatever will be part of the learning process,
Yep.
which is fantastic. That neutrality allows for you to take in horrendous conflicts. But for instance, oh, this is a man torturing somebody else, in the 16th century, to extract truth. Poor victim. You can say both are victims. Both are victims. That you don't take a side. That man is suffering because he wanted to save his country. The other one is horrendous. Yes, horrendous, but he's also under. And then we go into the exploration of who this individual is, what happened. And that becomes very interesting. It's a process of storytelling that never ends. And if we get activated, we know that something in us was touched that yet needs to mature or to be addressed. And it's better most of the time to keep silent until we resolve. When we speak about something, it cannot be, yes, because they did it. Why? I'm losing all my energy. I'm losing all my communion.
Would an ideal facilitator, let's say you're teaching teenagers who, have come from other environments, not from UDA school, and, some of them, let's say, are very withdrawn, and, you can tell that they're listening, but they're not communicating. They're not participating. Would an ideal learning facilitator use the classroom environment to try to prompt them, you think?
I think you have to realize the programming of that child first. And I'll use a common example that many educators will know. When you were doing the national anthem in the morning, you put your hand over your heart. Did you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also got it under the desks for a nuclear power drill. I mean, nuclear explosion drill.
When you were doing that, you were part of an education system that was teaching a program that's called Patriot Programming, okay? And this is common throughout history. The national anthems are shared, that's why they're at the Olympics. Our societies create these tools, and they're used for good and bad, okay? You are just instilling the concept of a Patriot program. How it's used in the future is up to those individuals with free will who are experiencing that karma in the future. But because you are part of that facilitation of teaching that program, a facilitator wants to make sure that he or she is not teaching programs, and that when a child comes, that they can see what programs they're coming with that prevent proper interaction with the rest of the children that are experiencing some form of unity amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why are they separate?
It would also be helpful to take a class of kids to a border between two countries, and they would actually see that the border does not exist. So it's very interesting. They don't exist. We make them up as kids playing, that will say this castle is mine or whatever. So the whole idea of patriotism, I mean, even if we were just striving for our planet, why not the galaxy? Why not all the galaxies?
Exactly.
It's a concept that was instilled in us, and we should love the music, why not? But it makes no sense to do something from one country, for one country and not for the other. When you become a parent, many experience that. You become a parent and suddenly all the kids on earth, you want to do something for them too. Thank goodness others don't need to wait for the time they become a parent to feel that. We are all responsible for each other, all of us. But
we're also responsible for our future generations.
Yeah. So when back to this ideal learning facilitator, before an ideal learning facilitator would prompt a student in front of their peers, it would be their responsibility to know that child deeply prior to prompting them in a social situation.
Yep, that would mean very small classroom sizes. That would mean at a tremendous amount of organization that each teacher would need. Each teacher needed assistants. Those assistants would need to be regular communications with the parents, and those assistants would be buffers between parental issues and the facilitator, who could then look at the child and say, all right, their home life of the child needs to be adjusted somehow. What can you do as parents? And if they can unable to change, then the facilitator has to make a choice if they can take on that responsibility of teaching that child how to be a child.
And I don't think we have any idea of what a society would truly look like if those precepts were followed, with, of course, variation here and there. We have no idea. Yeah. What would it be to come home in the evening and have another world, because all these children will be respected in their potential and engaged in their enthusiasm for understanding. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Wow. The whole child.
The whole child. And then there's ways to look at the parents. The current psychology industry, and I will kind of broaden my paintbrush here, can be retooled, meaning the tools that they have reapplied to adapting parents to allowing children free growth so that the parents can have simultaneous free growth, okay? So that they begin sharing the experience of growing with the child. Okay, that's tremendous healing on the parents who many of them didn't have a full childhood.
And you know, you're touching here upon a point. Everything you do for a 3-month-old baby or a 3-year-old child, the baby you once were, the child, the 3-year-old you once were, they're alive in you. They get activated. And by nurturing in this gorgeous form, that little one, a lot of your suffering that you had sometimes at that stage just gets healed. And you know, psychological healing done that way doesn't even leave a scar. And you have much more energy to yourself for your daily life. As we parent, as we truly parent, a lot of our own childhood stuff gets resolved because of what we were able to accomplish with our little one. It's
definitely
invisible therapy.
Sam, if you'd like, there's a kind of another school out here in Yelm, Washington, that does a lot of conscious energy teachings, and it's a school that people can attend here in Yelm, and it's called the Phoenix Rising School. And believe it or not, it was started by members of the Ramtha School of Enlightenment, and they teach many of the enlightenment skills from the school at this Phoenix Rising School, which is conscious energy and understanding of the natures of reality, but at the same time giving them science, giving them math, giving them playtime, giving them the smaller class sizes. So there are living examples of these schools. Maybe not exactly as I've described them, but they are trying. These are charters. They do exist, and they are looking to expand too.
Yeah, we'd love for them to be a resource for the New Earth, 0-point learning faculty. I mean, that's what we're all about, is to gather these examples and methods that. So, how would you suggest approaching them? Would you want to do it, or would we?
Well, I think I can get a hold of the owner, one of the people on the board. That I know them quite well, We can put something together. It wouldn't be that hard. I just have to communicate with you off here about that.
Okay, that's great.
Laura,
Yeah, and anyone else out there, I mean, if there's like, models out there that are functioning, we want to know about them, and, it's a whole new earth, right?
Yeah, it's a whole new earth.
Wonderful. A whole new nation, too.
Yeah, that's right. So, Sam, do you want to give out an email address that people can get a hold of you?
Sure. Sam Coltrane at rocketmail.com.
And Laura, for you a website or an email?
Yes, it's wondersofthewomb.com. That's my website, and there is an email there. Wondersofthewomb.com.
And if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can go to andrewbartzis.com, and you can get a hold of me there. Anyways, we've got about 9 minutes left. Laura, do you have any final conversation you'd like to bring up?
Although we have touched beautiful heights and depths in this program, let's remember that the first step counts immensely. Small details, like every little piece that we can bring to a pregnant woman in her universe, any act of peacefulness will really enhance her pregnancy, her awareness. If it's a public thing, like a choir of pregnant women, or simply talking to this woman, reminding her of the power nature has given her to truly bring forth a lover of mankind, a benefactor for this planet, for this Gaia and its humanity. So let's never, it's not because I cannot do something grandiose that I shouldn't do the small things. So bring in harmony, bring in peace, bring in ease to every pregnant woman you cross every day. That will be already gorgeous work.
Yeah.
Sam, any final questions or statements?
Well, I can ask you questions probably all day.
I had a feeling about that. I love an inquiring mind at times, especially when you get your crowbar out.
Oh, and is that the crowbar? Is that a polarity utensil?
It's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool. And at times we need to apply those tools, but we can apply all tools in neutrality also. So if we want someone to open up, we can use the crowbar in such a way that brings a frequency of love to them or a frequency of safety to them, that they can have that comfort zone to open to that authentic self.
Right. Right.
That's ultimately what we're trying to share, is that each person can come to that common concept. Can you break bread with this other person? Can you eat a meal with them? Can you stomach them for that long?
Wow.
And then question, why are you even stomaching them? They are another human being that deserves the same level of respect.
Well, one thing that I would really like to get moving on is, first of all, UTA is working with Greg on the sovereignty of the land that the school is on. Mm-hmm. And the next step, UTA has, too many students for the space. She's growing, and she, uses curtains to separate rooms so she could have 2 separate rooms. So she needs more facilities. So I would, throw out there, how can we help her, get more resources?
That'll have to be decided on the New Earth Nation side. They can start a donate process for that. That will have to be facilitated by someone on the management side. But yes, that can be done.
Well, that would be great. I mean, like create a fund or something like.
Yeah, they'd have to do something like that and then promote it. Yeah.
And we're also imagining how students. We talked a little bit with Boris at the Tesla Academy about how students can be participating in hands-on kind of things to help create their school, create the new Earth, essentially. It's like what's so beautiful is that, I mean, can you imagine how, like geography lessons is going to be informed by the fact that we have communities all over the world that they can visit. We can exchange students. They can go live with another family and another learning community, all part of the new Earth. And everything that they learn is got a practical implication. Like we're going to need to have these skills to get this particular thing done. So everything is connected.
Well, everything is connected, and to be facilitators, all that, everything has to be in place that handles the transition of people from one state of belief to another state of belief, which is the New Earth Nation is real. And that's what these shows are about, is to show that you can get involved and you can volunteer and you can be a part of this growing process, whether it's science and technology, whether it's education, spirituality, healing, whatever your modus operandi is we are bringing all of the umbrellas here so that everyone has a facility and a facilitator to help them bring about these ideas of coming together in these common communities where sovereignty is understood, where science and spirituality can disagree and agree at the same time and yet not cause polarity amongst themselves, but peacefully coexist, as neighbors.
Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful.
No? Is that utopia, or is that people just literally letting go of their angst and their frustration and the governmental concepts that say you have to think this way as Democrat or Republican in duality, and then perception of separation, and you're disconnected until you reconnect, which is through your dreams at first, consciously recording your dreams in the morning and allowing yourself to naturally wake up. Turn off the cell phone. Don't leave it by your bed. If you can turn off your router, try not to sleep with as much airwaves in the airwaves so you can sleep normal.
Let go and let God, as the saying goes.
Yeah. Surrender.
In every given moment, in any given moment, each one of us can decide if we want to think with our ego and belief in the separation, that we're not really connected, that we're afraid of one another, that we have to defend ourselves. We can choose to think with that framework, or we can choose to think in unity, think that we're all connected, and that there's abundance and love, and we just reach out and touch each other,
And that's the fundamentals of what a facilitator has to be able to do, is to be able to carry that high frequency of love and transition from reality to reality, which is a kid, different education, different versions, and be able to manage that class of education of these wonderful little beings that are growing into our future. We want to educate them, but at the same time, we want them to have their childhood. Our current frame of education really strips that a lot away from them.
Yes, and
right.
When we teach unity, when we show the example of unity, it's important to have it not just amongst us humans, but the grain of sand, the breeze, and all the minerals and the vegetable kingdom, the trees, and there's no limit.
Right.
We are one with the universe. And sometimes we want to be kind to each other, but what about the rest?
Yeah.
When we birth them right, I think they come in with the connection. They come in with an awareness already, so it's less likely for them to fall into the ego so much.
No, not really. Not really, actually. I've seen many indigos and many crystals fall into ego and vanity and literally have no way out. We've got about 30 seconds left. I want to thank everyone coming on, Sam Coltrane, Laura Uplinger, and you two that was on earlier. Thank you very much, everyone, and we will be back with another show of New Earth Nation Prime Time. All right, everyone, take it easy. Phase of technology for a certain group of lineage people who have gone through the constriction of the throat chakra.